In this video, we'll look at solving quadratic equations by factoring. First, a few definitions. A quadratic equation is a polynomial equation that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a cannot be 0. A quadratic equation is said to be in standard form if it can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The zero product property states if the product of two factors is 0, then at least one of the factors is 0. That is, if a times b is 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0, or both a and b are 0. The steps to solve by factoring are 1. Write the quadratic equation in standard form, that is, set it equal to 0. 2. Factor the polynomial on the left side of the equation. 3. Set each factor found in step 2 equal to 0 using the zero product property. Step 4. Solve each first degree equation for the variable. And step 5, we can check our answer. Notice in our first example, the equation is already set equal to 0 and it has already been factored. So from here, we'll use the zero product property and set each of those factors equal to 0. X minus 6 equals 0, and 4x plus 3 equals 0. Next, we'll solve each of those independently. On the left, we need to add 6 to both sides, leaving us with x equals 6. On the right side, we'll subtract 3 first. 4x equals negative 3. And then divide by 4. And we get x is equal to negative 3/4. So we have our solutions to the equation. If you want, we can check these. To check by hand, we'll substitute our answers into the original equation. We'll check these one at a time. So first, let's check 6. Substitute in the 6. Everywhere you see an x, we'll replace it with the number 6. And we're asking, is this true? Is this equal to 0? So we get 0 times 4 times 6 plus 3 is 27. And that is a true statement. 0 equals 0, meaning 6 is good. Next, we'll check the other answer, negative 3/4. Plug it into the original equation. Everywhere you see an x, we'll replace the x with negative 3/4. And again, we're asking, is that a true statement? Is that equal to 0? Negative 3/4 minus 6 is negative 27/4. Then we have minus 3 plus 3 equals 0. Negative 27/4 times 0 is indeed 0. We get a true statement, meaning that negative 3/4 is correct. Up next, notice this quadratic has already been set equal to 0. So from here, we will factor. We're looking for two numbers whose product is positive 2 and whose sum is 3. Those two numbers are 2 and 1. Once we've factored, we will set each of those two factors equal to 0. From here, we solve. On the left, we need to subtract 2 on both sides, leaving us with x equals negative 2. And the right equation, we need to subtract 1 on both sides, leaving us with x equals negative 1. And we have our solutions. If you wanted to check this, again, you could substitute those individually into the original equation and see if you get a true statement. Pause the video and check for yourself. See if these two work. Our next example, notice, is not in standard form. We need to set the equation equal to 0. So we need to first subtract 6 on both sides. X squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Once we're in this form, we can factor. We're looking for two numbers whose product is -6 and whose sum is -1. That is -3 and +2. From here, zero product property, x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. And we'll solve these. The left equation, we need to add 3 to both sides, leaving us with x equals 3. And we need to subtract 2, leaving us with x equals -2. Our first step in this example is to set the right side of the equation equal to 0. We'll do that by adding 2x to both sides. We get 4x squared plus 2x equals 0. Next, we need to factor. These two have a common factor of 2x. That greatest common factor will factor out, leaving us with 2x plus 1 equals 0. Once we factored, set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve. So on the left equation, we need to divide by 2, and we get x equals 0. On the right equation, start by subtracting 1. 2x equals -1, and then we divide by 2. X equals -1/2. In this example, we need to set the right side of the equation equal to 0. To do that, we need to subtract x on both sides, and we need to add 1 to both sides. That will leave us with x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 0. From here, we can factor two numbers whose product is 25 and whose sum is 10, 5 and 5. Once we factored, we'll set each of those equal to 0, and since they're the same factor, we don't need to do it twice. We can just set x plus 5 equal to 0 one time and solve. Subtract 5 on both sides, and we get x equals -5. This quadratic equation has a leading coefficient that is not 1. Since we have a 2 there, let's use the AC method to help us factor. A times c, 2 times -2 is -4. And then we want two numbers whose product is -4 and whose sum is -3. That will be -4 and 1. So we can rewrite our equation now as 2x squared minus 4x plus x minus 2 equals 0. Factor by grouping. Look at the first two terms. Their GCF is 2x. Factor out a 2x and you're left with x minus 2. Look at the last two terms. Their GCF is 1. Factor out a 1 and you're left with x minus 2 equals 0. Continue factor by grouping. Notice that the parentheses are the same. So we can factor out x minus 2, leaving us with 2x plus 1 equals 0. Now that we've factored, zero product property. Set each of those factors equal to 0. On the left equation, we need to add 2 to both sides, and we get x equals 2. On the right equation, we'll start by subtracting 1. 2x equals -1. Then divide by 2. And we get x is -1/2. In this example, notice that all three terms have a common factor of 2x. So we'll start by pulling out that greatest common factor, 2x. That will leave us with x squared plus x minus 12. From here, we can factor the quadratic. We're looking for two numbers whose product is -12 and whose sum is 1. that will be positive 4 and negative 3. Notice this time we have 3 factors being multiplied to give us 0. We can still use the zero product property here. We'll just have 3 separate equations. Set each factor equal to 0. 2x equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. And solve as usual. On the left, we'll divide by 2. X equals 0. In the middle, we need to subtract 4 on both sides of the equation, leaving us with x equals minus 4 or negative 4. And on the far right, add 3 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 3. Thanks for watching.